For us and my colleagues at 113 Botanicals, we're delighted to have the chance to present to you and give you a little bit of an update as to what we've been doing over the last 3 years since we put 113 Botanicals together. My name's Tim Kneen. I'm a Chief Strategy Officer at 113 Botanicals. So I'm really pleased to share a lot of the updates and the real progress that we have been able to take forward as a UK-based organisation. My history has been in the pharma industry, and I've been in pharma for 30 years as I've grown up in that sector. Actually, a majority of that was with Merck KGaA, which is just the other side of Frankfurt in Darmstadt. But I lived and worked and led the businesses in many different regions across the world, intercontinental region, over in Asia, and head of Europe when I was based over in Germany. Now, for those of you that know Merck, Merck covers quite a lot of different sectors, but one of the key areas that I was involved in quite some time ago was in multiple sclerosis and in epilepsy. And that was my first exposure to cannabis at that time and the benefits of cannabis. So it has been wonderful for me to get back engaged in cannabis and working with 113 to see what we can do to address a huge unmet medical need, the clinical need that there is for generating data and actually producing solutions that can make a difference to patients' lives. So we're at an exciting point in history for us. After a lot of the development that we've gone through, we're really at a pivotal point of progress, and it's great for us to be able to share some more of that with you. So what have we done? In summary, and I hope you'll get this from the presentation that we run through, we are absolutely a true science and technology-based organisation. We want to target, and we continue to really focus on groundbreaking research, looking at extraction as one element, and the delivery of cannabinoid medicines to address and hopefully meet those huge unmet medical needs that exist in the population. So what I'm going to be pleased to be able to share with you today is a little bit more on what we've done. We've developed a truly innovative, patented extraction process that produces a pharmaceutical grade primary full spectrum extract of really unique quality. So I'll tell you a little bit more about that. And secondly, we've got the unique technology to produce a first-in-class controlled and sustained release cannabinoid product. As you'll appreciate when we talk more about that, we'll be already starting to think about how to address the challenges of getting what we all recognize to be great medicine into the body. And so we've advanced that in terms of thinking about the formulation that we can deliver the product effectively as people would perceive medicine to be historically, but also looking at some great research about how else we can innovate in that space. So that's what our primary focus has been, extraction, and then thinking about how we can deliver the product. So where we are, we're working with the MHRA. We're a UK-based organisation. We're working with the MHRA, and in great collaboration with the MHRA from our meetings with them. And I would approach this with my mindset from the pharma industry. You don't often have tremendously positive interactions with regulatory authorities. We've had some really positive interactions with the MHRA. They wanted us to accelerate the program because they could see that the clinical benefit of progressing with what we have developed in terms of the formulation. Our agreement with them was to accelerate that, build out the factory, get the product available, but then really build out a clinical development program and addressing the data gaps that exist in the marketplace. So it's a really accelerated process. We're targeting Q4 2023 to have everything in place, all the certification for launch in the UK, and then in 2024 to be able to expand across Europe. So an exciting point in our history. So who are we? As I've highlighted, a UK-based organisation. We're on the south coast of the UK. building out factory in Worthing. Those of you who are not from the UK, you might not know where that is. Very close to Brighton, on south of London. This is where this collaboration with the University of Sussex comes in. You'll see that on the slides as a presenter. That's been a really important part of how we've been able to develop the technology that we've done, is this partnership with real experts in that space. It's this combination of our own scientific expertise in the organization with real experts in the University of Sussex. The experts in the fields of the extraction engineering we've talked about, and the medicinal biotech process and formulation work that we've done. And that's what's helped us to develop this groundbreaking research. We have a Schedule 1 laboratory at the University of Sussex, and we have a major production facility at very, very final stage of construction. It's in Worthing. So we've got some great partnerships already in place, but it's still early days for us. But we're working with many key figures and companies across the sector. So for the meeting today, this is really the first time that we've got to the stage where we're really broadly communicating to a bigger audience, because we've wanted to get all the patents, everything in place before we can start to communicate broadly. But we're at that pivotal point now. I'm looking forward to seeing who else we can collaborate with across the European region. So I'd say mission for us, what do we want to do is we want to harness all that scientific expertise that we've got to develop these really high quality CBPMs. We've got to think, and we are continually thinking about innovative routes of administration, all with this focus for us about raising standards in this space, thinking about safety, efficacy, and affordability where we can. And that laboratory that we have with the University of Sussex has pulled together all these multidisciplinary team members, and we're all working together, really dedicated to advance the knowledge and the data that we have to support treatment of patients in this space. So we're in a really unique position now to present these different innovations that we've got with some, we believe, real genuine real-world implications to drive up that safety and efficacy and hopefully affordability. So what am I going to cover today? 3 things I'll talk about. I'll talk about the extraction, first and foremost, what we've developed. We'll talk about the formulation, and that's how the product's getting delivered into the patients, and just a little bit on future research. We've only got 30 minutes today, but we hopefully have some good discussion time afterwards when we can dig into a little bit more of that. But I'll talk about the extraction first and foremost. We have a major program of research, as we talked about, continuing in conjunction with the University of Sussex, and it truly is a unique program. Great output so far, but so much more to come. So what do we have? Our extraction is non-hazardous, non-flammable, and environmentally benign. So patented extraction, patent protected for us, developed by the scientific team at 113 Botanicals and the University of Sussex. It's low pressure, it's and temperature actually, and based on that, it's low engineering and running costs. It produces extracts that replicate the plant in the composition of the bioactive molecules. They are true full spectrum, and no isolation, no reblending is required, no downstream purification steps are necessary. So what does that mean? Product is not purified, it's not modified, we've got no chemicals, no added heat, so it's natural and pure. That's great for us, obviously, in terms of the extract that we produce, and then what we can do with it, and how much it's controlled for us. But also perhaps for the future as well, thinking about it as a GMP product fulfilling that FDA criteria for BDS application, potentially at a future date. So there's lots of ramifications for us for that. So what do we do? A little bit more detail on this, but it is decarboxylation, and that's a process, one-step process that you've got. And this is top-line view of how our process differs. It's gentle, it's low pressure, it's low temperature, as we've talked about decarboxylation, using a benign gaseous medium. this produces the full spectrum primary extract that we got, a really pure extract that we were able to produce with no further processing required. So you get this low cost, which is brilliant, not big impact on the environment, and low environmental impact, but a very good high yield for us, and we get this full spectrum, which I think we appreciate has major benefits in terms of the product impact. So when you compare that to what we would perceive to be perhaps more traditional commercial extraction processes, it's different. It's different number of steps, perhaps lower yields, different spectrums. So it's a unique patented process for us, and we're delighted that we've been able to build that process into the factory that we put in place in the UK. So that's the extraction process. Gone through, it's patented now, we've built out, and we'll obviously be delighted to talk more about that in some depth later. But I'll concentrate perhaps a little bit more on the formulation. Because, extraction, we get to an active product, but then that conundrum of how do you get it in to start to do what it can do into the body. And that's one of the biggest conundrums that we face with cannabinoids. Great product, but they are really challenging to be able to put into the body as a medicine. And it's no question that it's been exciting to get cannabis medicine into Europe. Yet, if you look at the number of patients that have actually accessed the cannabis medicine, it's far too low compared to the patient need, or compared to the number of patients that are on opioids, or whichever parameter that you want to look at. We've not yet found the solution to get this product to really address the huge number of patients that could benefit. The use of specials ultimately across Europe is too low. The use of prescribed, fully licensed medicine far too low across the region compared to the medical need. So why is that? Well, if you look, it's the different elements of how can you get the product into the body. You've got a raft of options that you consider, with advantages and some disadvantages. We've got a great drug, but we've got a real challenge of getting it into the body. You look at what's available. You've got vaping right the way down to pills as an option. But clearly cannabinoids are challenging in terms of administration. So that perhaps begins to guide you why the usage is much lower than what we'd all establish is the patient need. You've got vaping in the UK. If we look at the stats in the UK, you've got 55% of patients that vape to get the medicine into the body in the UK. But what do we know about vaping? Because ultimately, vaping's come onto the market. There's very little long-term data associated with vaping, and certainly even more so with cannabis. But I'll share with you some of the data that we'd have a look at, which starts to address that data gap again that we've got there. One thing's for sure: prescribing vaping is not something that doctors would traditionally do in terms of treating a patient. We all appreciate that. That's a real shift in mindset. Going through the skin, this is a wonderful organ that we have, but it's certainly for cannabis, it's very difficult to get that through the skin. Brilliant if you can avoid the hepatic system, but cannabis is not lipophilic. You've got a great barrier to get it through there, so you haven't got that as a very poor skin penetration, and it's yet to be developed. That's one area of development for us, which we're delighted to work upon. Sublingual, again, UK, you've got 45% when we looked at the data of patients use the oils. You've still got that issue of dose control, doctor perception of that as medicine, I think. And then we get to the capsules. And this is logic. This is medicine, how all of us get used to what medicine is. But absorption with cannabis specific to the small intestine, you've got to transmit yourself the product through the body to get to the right place where it can get absorbed. And there's no current product that can do that in a controlled and sustained release precise manner, and that the doctors need that kind of familiarity. And so that's what we're working on in terms of a solution there. So we talked about data associated with these things, and I thought I'd share some of this. If you look at vaping, at least, this is the latest research that we found on vaping with cannabinoids as well. And so this is, if you look, very recent data for us, American Chemical Society, and it highlights some of the questions associated with why vaping with CBT in particular may cause problems. And I think all of us would probably recognize the study of vaping is not being done enough. I'm a father with teenagers, and the amount of teenagers that are vaping, as access, but there isn't enough long-term data there to understand what that does to the body. And certainly with cannabis, that's absolutely the case. But I wanted to share this with you. They report on this vaping-induced formation of cytotoxic CBDQ. So when you look at what the study is about, they looked at the aerialization of CBD vaping products and ultimately proved or showed, at least from this data, that vaping with CBD induced cell death, pro-inflammatory responses, and reactive oxygen generation in the lung tissue. This is where, when you think this one through, this is where there's a risk of tumors in the lung. If we generate these CBD quinones, this is toxic, this causes cellular stress. We understand that's not good. So there's definitely more study that's required, but logic, if you induce oxidative stress in cells, it's not good. So they report that vaping with CBD alters this protein function and induces this cellular stress in the pathways in the lung. And obviously that's something to think about with vaping, if that's where majority of people are currently taking the medicine at the moment. So really interesting data. It's already starting to illustrate perhaps there's something different about how, if you're generating CBD quinones in lung tissue, that's really something to think about. Second thing in terms of data to have a look at, which was interesting from our perspective, is trying to understand this dynamic of the marketplace of why people are prescribing or not. This was a study again in the UK, had 1,000 GPs there, just to try and understand that perception of CBMP and how that fitted within the range of options for treatment of disease. So 51% was the big number in the middle. This is the number of respondents that supported the use of CBMP as alternatives to these other drugs that you see scattered around the top. This was only 18 months ago, but this is CBMP as alternative to benzodiazepines, opioids, a whole raft of Z drugs, gabapentinoids. These are the dependency-forming drugs. So they recognize that cannabis, CBMP, is safer than those drugs, but still only 51% of them would think about, would say, support the use of that. And even more so is of the 51% who support the use, only 24% of them said that they would prescribe them as alternatives. So they see them as safer and they can see the benefits, but only 24% of 51%, tiny, would actually see themselves prescribing that. So that means you've got a huge proportion that just won't prescribe it. And so why is that? They feedback, method of administration, big limitation. They're still concerned about safety, certainly cost, and just a lack of understanding. So what can we address to make a difference here? Because we want to get to a point which we've got a standard and a safe method of administration. And if we can get to that point, build the trust and the security in prescribing, then hopefully you can really address some of these factors and provide alternatives to what there currently is in the marketplace now. This was just a very quick look at understanding the use of these, the huge use of these really challenging drugs, these dependency-forming drugs. This is looking UK data and other European data, in 2021-22, there were 7 million identified patients that were prescribed these dependency-forming medicines in the UK. 7 million out of a population of 65, huge. And you look at the consumption rate of opioids in pain management in particular. This morphine milligram equivalent per 1,000 inhabitants. UK is actually the highest in the world. I mean, Germany, where we are today, not that far behind. But this propensity to use these dependency-forming medicines is huge. And go back to the data we showed before, the doctors want an alternative, but need to get more confidence and security and familiarity with what they can actually use. Look, and from our perspective, that's what we've been working on. That's what we've been working on with the University of Sussex, is to think about this, of what medicine the physicians and the patients are used to taking. So oral capsule delivery. We've done a lot of different analysis of the available capsule, the oral medication that there is in capsule form. What's available on the market at the moment. There's a lot, and we've measured every single capsule that exists that we can find and we come across to understand. This goes from capsules with potato starch, CBD potato starch, to capsules with gelatin membranes. And what we've tried to understand and measure is exactly that release profile that's in place, how each product attempts to address the challenge we talked about before, is how to get the medicine into the body. So look at the axis first and foremost. This is the percentage of CBD that's released over time. You've got pH low, which is signifying stomach. It's in vitro. You've got obviously higher, which is then going into the upper intestine. And you can see we're peaking, maximizing CBD release 17%. When it gets to this number, but you still got release in the acid environment, doesn't do anything, and then release in a higher pH. So think about that. It's too small, the quantities that are needed, which is very debatable in terms of the impact that you're able to make there. Now, from our perspective, what do we see? A clear difference. This is our product. Spherecan technology is what we've captured with it, and that's what we're in the process of going through final steps with. But it's a true sustained release product. New technology, I think we capture it as such, and it's true, complete enough, exactly controlled as you'd hope it to be, sustained release oral administration. If you look at the axis, you'd see in terms of the stomach, there's no release. There's no release in lower pH. All the product is released. And again, look at the axis. We're up to nearly 100% of the release over time, controlled over time, in terms of the release that is defined for us at the pH that it wants to be. So this is the capsule. As you can see, this is what it looks like. There's really 5 key aspects to it. It's very precise dosing, safe in a capsule. Doctors and patients are absolutely used to that. We can use lower doses because of what we illustrate in terms of the release profile, and hence lower costing for us. Perfect dosing regime is possible. I'll share that with you in terms of the kind of BD regime that we can put in place. You don't have to inhale or vape the product, move away from that, the issues associated with that, but very precise dosing. So for a medicine, for a doctor to know exactly what they're providing to the patient. And for us, when we think about the development of data and really understanding what this product and the impact it does, all the clinical programs that we can put in place, we understand you do X, deliver this, you're going to get this result. It's predictable, which is great. I think a huge step forward for us. And I go back to this kind of comparison. This is the data that I'd shared before. The axes aren't the same. That's up to 20%. This is up to 100% in terms of release. But I put this in just to illustrate we can control the profile of release and the timing of that release. And so we can go from 1.5 hours, we can go up to 8 hours in terms of controlling exactly that release over the entire time that it's where it needs to be in the intestine. So you think about the ramifications for that, you're immediately thinking a BD dose can control, give that sustained coverage for patients for a number of indications over that time. So truly linear, and you see that shape. How do we deliver it? I'm not going to, I haven't got time to go through all the technology. We tried to capture it in terms of what the process is, but we're happy with our scientific team to talk more about this now. We've got everything in place to really start to communicate broadly on this. But we have this ability to really conjugate all the active ingredients together. It's clear what's available at the moment on the market is these macro capsules with enteric coating. Once that enteric coating's digested, everything's released. That's very different to the way our product works. Ours is linear. We've got this very engineered porous polymeric matrix. So how does that work? From a science basis, there's two key elements to it. We talk about this size exclusion mechanism and the electrostatic affinity forces means then that's how we manage to really predict exactly the release profile that we want. And that's what the scientific team at 113 and University of Sussex have perfected. What it does mean, though, is that we can control that release of the product exactly as we want it to, depending on the indication that we're going to provide the product for. So really interesting developments for us, and I think in summary of what we've got, this is our solution. It's viable, it's effective, and a safe alternative to those dependency-forming medicines we've talked about. It's safe administration. So from a physician's basis, great, and you've got that consistent dose control, and we can deliver that. So we're really looking forward to making this available to patients over Europe and the world over the coming months and years. There's no question, I think, as you look at the analysis of the market environment, that there's a need, and we're excited to see how that's going to evolve and develop going forward further. That's just in terms of the initial formulation, but we're still very much more focused on going further and advancing that understanding in terms of the scientific research and data in this space. I'll only very quickly talk about this, and it's the last bit I was covered today. But we are absolutely committed to generating more data and understanding, but finding different solutions that we can take forward. And we've got this major program of research happening in conjunction with our partners at the University of Sussex, and it really is a unique program. I only put this up just to illustrate the scientific team that we have access to there. As we'd highlighted before, I mean, our goal is absolutely to discover more novel therapeutics for diseases with higher medical need. That's what we're focused on. But working with this expert team, with our own internal scientific experts, highly productive, very quick solutions, and some amazing research that we're working on. I mean, we're continuing to develop the process management for sure in terms of delivery of CBMP, and we'll continue to innovate in that space. I put there about the transdermal drug delivery system, that ability to really properly deliver in patch format into the body. We've got some fantastic patent work already in, and so that's a separate presentation for us. But that's a really positive, exciting step. You think of some of the ramifications of being able to put a patch on to give you that consistency of delivery and making sure that you've got that ability to transmit through this difficult layer of skin that we've got. So that's a really exciting step. Perhaps this time in a few months we'll be able to present more on that one. But the last thing is the work on the pain neurons that I talked about with some of you, and the influence of cannabinoids is really measuring absolutely on an individual nerve cell how and why and what a cannabinoid product actually does to the nerve cell itself. It's just never been done before, and we've got some fantastic tech that we're working on that. So we, as I said before, we're committed and we're working with the MHRA to develop what we've got now, but we've got some brilliant innovation that we're excited to see where this is going to progress going forward. But critically for us, it's about the solution that we've got, and that's the first step. So by the end of this year, we are excited to make this product available through special routes initially, and we're in the process of finalizing or further advancing and developing the whole clinical program that we put in place to really generate some exciting and very needed data to support the use of these products going forward. So we're really looking forward to that first step for us, but also to working with more partners as we want to understand and expand across Europe. UK is the first step, but Europe comes pretty quickly after that. And so it's been hopefully great for us to introduce the organization properly to you, but we're looking forward to further discussion with you all. But thanks for your attention, everyone. I hope it was interesting.